Welcome into the Beachside Blitz. I am your host, Patricia Caputo, and this is where we surf the wave of sports here on the Beachside Blitz. This is the last show for the summer, so I am so excited that we get to wrap things up here today, Saturday at 4 p.m. Thank you all for listening this summer, but let's get right into it, just like we always do. Let's end this on a good note, starting off with our first segment of What's the Scoop? If you haven't heard, the Philadelphia Eagles are 2-0. Yes, I understand it is just the preseason, but that's something to brag about. You haven't lost a game just yet. The team traveled to Foxborough, took on a team in the Patriots. They looked solid. Now they only won 14-13, but again, it's the preseason. None of the starters even played. You had Tanner McKee in there for a little bit. You did see Kenny Pickett, which I think is a good look, even though the hope is that Jalen Hurts stays healthy, but Kenny Pickett was out there. He went 11 for 13 for 67 yards. Along with that, you saw Ty Davis-Price. And I mentioned Ty Davis-Price because they have still not narrowed down the roster, so we'll likely get to a 53-man roster. They haven't gotten at that point yet. If you watch a show like Hard Knocks, it really takes you into what that is like, narrowing down that roster. Ty Davis-Price went to LSU. He was there for many, many years. And when he was at LSU, I was able to watch him play. He was very much of a goal line guy. So why I bring him up is that if he does make the roster, right now it's not certain. The likelihood is that he'll be cut from the Philadelphia Eagles and picked up somewhere. If he makes the roster, he's more of a goal line guy. So you have Saquon Barkley. Everyone wants touchdowns from Saquon. This is a very different defense, or offense rather, than what Saquon is used to. It's obvious that he has a much better quarterback this year in Jalen Hurts compared to a guy like Daniel Jones, I would say, just statistically speaking, a guy who's been to the Super Bowl, who's been to the playoffs multiple times, who I would say just has a better arm. He has a few more wideouts, a little bit more helpful in that case, where this is going to be very new for Saquon, but it brings me to Ty Davis-Price because that is where he thrives. He thrives right at that goal line, that 1 yard, 2 yard line, where they need someone just to run in real quick. So while he did not score a touchdown against the Patriots, he did have 4 carries for 28 yards. So what I'm saying is that if you have Saquon Barkley in your fantasy league and somehow Ty Davis-Price does make this Eagles roster, it's something to look out for. Possibly with these fantasy drafts coming up, if Ty Davis-Price again makes the roster, possibly draft him too if you have Saquon Barkley. Because Saquon, let me tell you, I had him on my fantasy team, thrived with the Giants, thrived. It was very similar to Christian McCaffrey when Cam Newton was on the Panthers for a little bit. Now, even though obviously the Eagles are going to use him a lot, they're paying him enough, but I do think it will be a little bit different. The Eagles have a very different scheme than what the Giants do. They don't necessarily need to rely on Saquon on every down, similarly to what the Giants used to have to do if things went wrong. But let's move on. There's also a lot, like I mentioned, the offensive weapons that the Eagles have, like Kenny Gainwell or Will Shipley. And like we mentioned, Saquon's going to tremendously help this offense. But on the defensive side, the Eagles seem to have it together there as well. Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Devin White, just to name a few. So this brings me to my topic of that they're, I would say, the best team in the NFC East right now, going into the season at least. We'll cut down rosters, like I had mentioned. There's some rookies. But compared to every other NFC East team, they're the most put together. And they have been, I would say, last year too. Even though the Cowboys were in the discussion, it seemed that the Giants were getting better. But I feel that the air has been sucked out of the New York Giants now that they didn't even offer Saquon Barkley. And, of course, now that he went to their opponent in the Philadelphia Eagles. But why the Eagles are the best team in the NFC East, yes, it has a lot to do with their players. But I think it also has a lot more to do with what each of their rivals have been doing. Washington, in my opinion, Washington is too young. They're a very young team. The Commanders have time, yes, but you're bringing in somebody like Jaden Daniels. I've watched him at LSU. He is fantastic. The problem is he's willing to put his body on the line no matter what. LSU was not home versus Mizzou this season, but they were away. LSU was losing that game, and Jaden Daniels knew the way the playoffs were set up. Now it will be different this year, but last year, that if this Tiger team did not win this game, LSU would have no shot at the playoffs. And the likelihood is that his chances of getting a Heisman would have decreased dramatically. Jaden Daniels put that team on his back, ran all over the place because LSU had no run game. They had no defense to help this team. He took multiple hits. He was out for a few minutes, checked for concussions and injuries, came back in, was fine, helped the team win a game. He did that multiple times during the season. Against Florida, did the same thing. Went in there and said that they had to win. Now, while the team looked very put together that day against Florida, Jaden Daniels still ran all over the place, was still willing to get hit and risk his body. And he's a skinnier guy. A lot of scouts are saying, while Jaden Daniels can be good, he's got to put on 15 more pounds. And now I know that the discussion, that is if he does run around the field, it's going to be, well, see, he can't throw the ball. He can't throw the long ball. That was the same discussion at LSU. And then a Heisman Trophy winner does not win the Heisman without not being able to throw the long ball. He did that just fine this season. It was just the way the offense is set up. So this could be very similar with this Washington Commanders team. Now, they do have a guy like Jahan Dotson and Diami Brown and a rookie in Luke McCaffrey, the brother of Christian McCaffrey. But you need the leadership. And do I think that Jaden Daniels will come in here and lead this team? Yes. And I say that for the Commanders because that is what he did for LSU. I was at a press conference when he had first decided to come to LSU to transfer from Arizona State. And Brian Kelly, if you know anything about Brian Kelly, the coach at LSU, he's a very straight up person. He gives a lot of PR answers, but he's very straight up to his players. And Brian Kelly, Jaden Daniels, this is his words, said that Brian Kelly told me I'm going to have to earn my spot. I did not come in here and think to myself that I have a free spot or a free opportunity to become a starting quarterback. I was going to have to earn it. And Jaden said, that's exactly why I came here. I was willing to earn my spot. And that's what he did. And multiple times, he put that team on his back. College is also very different from the NFL, we have to realize. While these guys are very big in college, it's a little different with the NFL. It's a little different when you're going up against guys like Jalen Carter and Nakobe Dean and Devin White. And you're smaller, and you're trying to run all over the place and carry the team on your back. I think the biggest problem here with the Washington Commanders is they're expecting a lot from a lot of young players, and that's even outside of football. The Commanders have had a lot of problems this year, or throughout the last few years, just with the change of ownership and everything that has happened within the organization that was more than just football, and now you're expecting a few rookies to come in and make a difference. It's not going to happen this year, and they understand that. But when you have a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, when you have a team like the Dallas Cowboys who have the opportunity to get it together and win games, you don't want to be too far behind. So that's the problem with the Washington Commanders. They're just too young. And the Giants fans, don't get upset with me, but the Giants are just too dumb. Daniel Jones is not the guy. I will never be convinced that he is the guy who can lead this team. I think a lot of people, possibly even the New York Giants coming in, were hoping they were getting someone like Eli Manning. Someone who won 2 Super Bowls with them, who wasn't necessarily flashy and had the greatest, best statistics. Tony Romo had better statistics than Eli Manning, but still won them 2 Super Bowls, one being a miracle one, but still went out there and won. No matter which way you slice it. Defeated Tom Brady multiple times. It's not Daniel Jones. So to go out there and to make a conscious decision to not even offer one of the best running backs in the league, Christian McCaffrey's still in the league and a few others, but one of the best running backs in the league, that as long as he can stay healthy, tremendously changes your team and the way they are looked at by the rest of the league and the threat that Barkley poses to defenses. To not even offer him, to not even offer a guy who wanted to stay in New York, who had a family or has a family, who settled in New York, who's from the tri-state area, to not even offer him? It's crazy. It's crazy. And then, of course, you do have somebody like Malik Neighbors, who they brought in to give Daniel Jones a weapon. So not saying that Malik Neighbors, he's also from LSU, is going to come in and solve all problems. He is a little smaller. but it gives Daniel Jones less of an excuse. He has the weapons, even if it's not Saquon. He has a wide receiver that he can throw to, but he's already gotten injured. Just a simple ankle injury, nothing too big, but it's something that's likely going to have to be looked at throughout the season. The more practice you do, once you get into a game, in Neighbor's case, he's a rookie, so this is all very new to him. Sometimes practice is not equal to a game. It never is. So you're going to go out there week one, it's going to be very different. And that's going to be the guy that you're relying on for Daniel Jones to throw accurate passes to. And then for the Giants not to even think that, well, if we don't sign Saquon Barkley, he's from PA, or he's from Jersey, but went to school in Penn State, has those connections, wanted to stay in New York, so why wouldn't he stay in the tri-state area? To not even think that this could be a guy that you're going to see twice a year, possibly even one more time if you make it to the playoffs. Why would you not sign him? I understand there's money issues and there's other priorities, but if I'm the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley is a priority. Running backs don't last as long, but the way this NFL is changing, you have to pay these guys because they're out there every single play and they're getting hit every single play. I think center's a very hard position, but it's one of the most difficult positions when you're a running back because, like I said, you're always getting hit. On every single play, every single series, you are making a move, right? You're either blocking for your quarterback, or you're getting the ball and you're trying to run away with it, or you're over there and you're lined up and you're trying to catch a pass from, if you're Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, which is, the truth is, just sometimes more difficult than other more accurate, steady quarterbacks. Giants should have thought this through a little bit more and probably sucked it up and spent the money. But if you're an Eagles fan, this is great for you because we move on to the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys are just too naive. And when I say that, I read about Jerry Jones and I hear about Jerry Jones and all of these. He's always been very outspoken. We know this about Jerry Jones. That's why a lot of teams don't like him, because he talks a lot and he goes on these radio shows. But when you get to a point where players that are playing for you don't like you or have beef with you, that's a problem. And that happened a little bit between CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones was talking to reporters and said, there's absolutely no rush to get the CeeDee Lamb deal done. When Lamb has not attended minicamp, has not been a part of the team, this is a guy who is very important to your offense. And Jerry Jones, Ezekiel Elliott is not going to help this team as much as you might think. He was already on this team. They didn't win. He's not the leader that I think Jerry Jones had hoped for once he had gotten through all of the personal issues Zeke had gone through for years and years, and Jerry Jones trying to help him out. CeeDee Lamb has been much more of a leader and has been a consistent for Dak Prescott. When he was first drafted, a lot of people didn't expect the Cowboys to take him. They were thinking maybe more O-line, possibly on the defensive side of things. But then they drafted CeeDee Lamb. And that was a wide receiver that they needed, a guy that they could rely on. Don't talk about not being in a rush to sign him. Because then CeeDee Lamb went on social media and said something along the lines of, oh, this is how you feel? Like, okay, you don't want me. You're not in a rush to get things done. You're not worried about it, as Jerry Jones said. That just say nothing. Just say nothing. And then also, we haven't even talked about the fact that Dak still has a deal to get done. While he's not holding out, I understand that the Cowboys are trying to think things through and trying to understand the salary cap and all that. These are two guys. Well, I don't know if you want to sign Dak Prescott. That's a decision the Cowboys are going to have to make themselves. But CeeDee Lamb seems like a pretty versatile player to me. And he's proven that time and time again. You want him no matter who is going to be your quarterback next year. Whether it's you decide to sign Dak Prescott, whether you draft someone, you trade for someone, whatever it is, however you slice it, CeeDee Lamb is consistent. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, not as consistent. Sign the guy that you know that as long as he's healthy, you can rely on him. And the same thing with the Cowboys is also the problem with the Commanders. I mentioned Dak Prescott. There shouldn't be a question as to whether or not they should sign him. But I think one of the biggest issues is the leadership aspect. Dak Prescott is not always he's not the most reliable quarterback. You see that in the playoffs. While he can do great in the regular season, the goal is to win football games beyond the regular season. Dak Prescott has not done that. And part of what I think this team needs is leadership. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, there have been times when Ezekiel Elliott years ago versus the Broncos, the Cowboys were getting absolutely crushed, like 31-7, something ridiculous. Ezekiel Elliott, I remember him just standing there during a play. Didn't do anything. Like, I just went on this rant about running backs doing everything on every single play, always having some sort of role. Zeke stood there because he knew they were going to lose and didn't even try. So now you have Zeke back. You have Dak, who come the playoffs, if you're on the Cowboys, you have to be thinking, can this guy come through and help this team and help them win a game? And then you have a defense who is only getting older with a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence right there on the end. Leighton Vander Esch just retired. He was younger, a linebacker. You have this defense that is inconsistent as well. That you want to rely on them. You want to rely on these guys that are coming in. But Sam Williams is now out for the year. Trayvon Diggs is coming back from a big injury after he was out for most of the season last year. Where is the leadership? Is Dak Prescott going to be that leader enough to sign him? To me, that leader for the next few years can be CeeDee Lamb, and there wouldn't be a question about it if you just sign him. So they have to get that done. Now, recent updates have said that they are working to secure a deal between the Dallas Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb. But you have to ask yourself, is there going to be tension after? Or is CeeDee Lamb going to say, you know what, I got paid, I'm good, I'm ready to get to work. All is forgiven with Jerry Jones. I would say that will likely be the case, but they have to get the deal done. But that brings me up to the one Eagles weakness. Now, obviously, as the season progresses, we'll see what other weaknesses and strengths each of these NFC teams have. But the Eagles seem to, on paper, look really, really good. But there have been recent discussions about Jalen Hurts and Sirianni lately, the head coach for the Eagles, and that there has been some tension between them. Now, Sirianni did take full responsibility, according to ESPN, for last season and the difficulties they faced after the Eagles lost in the wild card playoff game to the Tampa Bay Bucks. But apparently they had some trouble letting it go. That there was, Jalen Hurts is a very determined player, but he also, like we said, I did an artist for athletes or athlete segment. Who said it? And Jalen Hurts kind of comes out with these strange quotes where he's like, we're gonna get it done and we're gonna try harder. And it's just like I mentioned those PR answers before. It's like that, but you're kind of questioning, wait, what did he just say? Does that even make sense? Is it okay? Yeah, you're just gonna try harder? Great. Okay. Where I know that obviously Jalen Hurts is an athlete. He's very determined. Sirianni's very determined. I feel that they both fit very well in Philadelphia. But this strain, if things go wrong and the Eagles lose a few games, might have an effect. But again, we're not in the locker room all the time. We're not at practice 24/7. The media isn't always there monitoring every single move. So the likelihood is that they have moved on from this and can say, let's go win football games. And again, not just regular season games. Playoff games. And maybe even a Super Bowl this time. Could be very helpful for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's move on to another Philly team right across the street. The Philadelphia Phillies. As many of you know, rookie Weston Wilson hit for the cycle on Thursday. The crowd went absolutely wild, as they should. It was a you gotta love baseball moment. He needed a double just to complete the cycle and did just that. The Nationals defense struggled tremendously, and that's how he was able to help him get that cycle. But I mention that because it is just the 10th cycle in Philadelphia Phillies history and just the second in Citizens Bank Park. So I bring this up because David Bell was the last one to do it in 2004. June of 2004. He is now the Cincinnati Reds manager. And I want to put in things into perspective of how long that was, because you don't realize that that's 20 years ago. So to put this into perspective of how long Philadelphia Phillies fans have been waiting to watch a cycle in Citizens Bank Park, well, let's start off with music. This is a radio station, right? Cape May Radio, WCFA 101.5 FM. Well, Burn by Usher. Burn by Usher was the #1 song in the top 100 when the last time a Philadelphia Philly hit for the cycle in Citizens Bank Park. Now let's talk about movies. That's another popular entertainment source. In May of 2004 rather, Shrek 2 was released. Just to put that into further perspective, Shrek 5 will be coming to theaters in 2026. And it was a huge, huge year for a couple of sports teams. First, the Best Five Alive and the Detroit Pistons won an NBA championship. They could have used the Best Five Alive this past season. But also, it was a very big year for the New England area, as the New England Patriots won a Super Bowl and the Boston Red Sox won a World Series to break the 86-year curse. So that just does put some things into perspective, and I think it was even more special for this Philadelphia Phillies baseball team, knowing that it came from a rookie in Weston Wilson, who was able to get the cycle against the Washington Nationals. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Philadelphia Phillies in just a bit, but I wanted to do a little wrap-up of the Olympics. And of course, we are coming back to Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles, an Olympic champion, won gold in the 100-meter, bronze in the 200-meter, and while getting bronze, it was later discovered that he had COVID symptoms. He was still able to get bronze. Quite fascinating. He's one of the best athletes that we have seen in a very long time. I've talked about this before. The guy has room to talk. He's won gold. He's did what most people can never accomplish in their life. Ever. Most people have never done in the history that we have. As long as the Olympics have been around, since the Athens time, the Romans time, there's been track and field. It's obviously looked a little different, but there's been track and field. And Noah Lyles has done what many cannot do. He mentioned that he does not like when NBA players say that they're world champions. World champions of what, right? The USA? But now there are a few NBA players who can say they're world champions after they won in the Olympics. We were keeping an eye on that last week on the Beachside Blitz. Shortly after, about 5 minutes after we ended the show, Steph Curry, LeBron James, and the USA men's Olympic basketball team went out there and won a gold medal. But let's talk about the next few days. Noah Lyles, the Olympics wrap up, everybody goes home. Anthony Edwards is also a gold medal winner. So Noah Lyles and him, in terms of the Olympics, are on the same page in their respective sport. Anthony Edwards has a gold medal. Well, Noah Lyles was a little upset. And I can understand, because he does not have a shoe deal. And Anthony Edwards is, or he does not have his own sneaker, rather. Anthony Edwards is getting his own sneaker. I would say the biggest difference here is that Anthony Edwards plays basketball where you usually have a certain type, like a Jordan. It's more fun. A lot of kids can wear them. Whereas Noah Lyles, with running shoes, they might not be as popular. Nike has transformed, or things like Nike and Adidas have transformed over the years into creating basketball shoes. But let's just hear it from Noah Lyles. He said, "You want to do what? You want to invite me to an event for a man who has not even been to an NBA final in a sport that you don't even care about, and you're giving him a shoe? Well, no disrespect, the man is an amazing athlete. He is having a heck of a year. I love that they saw the insight to give him a shoe, because they saw that what he was going to be, they saw that he was going to be big. All I'm asking is, how could you not see that for me?" This is what he told Time Magazine. I get it. It's frustrating. But I think we also have to admit that there's a big difference in terms of track and field and NBA and basketball. And the likelihood is that the truth is Michael Jordan changed all of this, and credit to Michael Jordan's mom, who was an advocate in ensuring that he could get a shoe deal and he could earn money to get a shoe deal back in the 80s. And it's very popular for basketball players to get shoe deals. You don't see that in NFL players necessarily every day. You don't see that in baseball players who are wearing cleats necessarily every day. Why they do have other sponsorships. The big thing is sneaker deals. Now, Noah Lyles could have just respectfully declined, but he's entitled to his opinion, so that's what he said. He didn't feel that it was fair for Anthony Edwards to get a shoe deal. Now, Noah Lyles, after many people made jokes and said maybe a basketball player beat him in a race or crossed him up one time, all of these silly jokes you see, he decided to try to shut down the rumor. He said, there is a rumor going around that I did not go to Anthony Edwards, tagging Anthony Edwards, shoe release because he didn't deserve it. That is not the case. He definitely deserves his shoe. He is an amazing player. The problem was finding time based on my prior engagements. Okay. You could have just said that from the jump, though. Go out there and say, this is great. Probably can't find the time. Or don't say anything and just tell Anthony Edwards that you can't make it. But according to Time Magazine, he just said, how could you not see that for me? Totally understand. Personally, there was probably a better way to say it. Probably an easier way to say, I just don't know if this guy deserves a shoe when I have not got one. But again, if you want to say, well, he hasn't won an NBA final, and then say, well, what are they world champions of? Well, Anthony Edwards just won a gold medal and defeated every basketball team that they could. Every team that they played against, they beat them and won. Noah Lyles did the same thing, didn't they? So I could see his perspective, but to use the idea of, well, he hasn't even won an NBA final when he's 23, around that age. Me and Anthony Edwards could have went to high school together. That's how young he is. So I know he's about 22, 23. So to use that argument is a little difficult to get people on your side to say, yeah, maybe you have a point here. And again, this is no harm, no foul to Anthony Lyles. But when you say things, you're going to expect people to talk about them. You probably want people to talk about them. But when you're poking fun or saying a certain athlete doesn't deserve it, when you both right now have the same credentials, maybe you have to think about it. And then don't say, well, I couldn't find the time, when you already said that you just didn't want to go because, well, it's not fair. But I leave you all to think about it and form your own opinion on it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Coastal Countdown. So this is where we wrap up some games that happened this week, but really take a deep dive into what is next for some baseball teams. We'll focus just strictly on baseball this week. Let's make it easy. John Oates. He not only performed at Woodstock this weekend, he was a very busy man. Cape May Woodstock on Thursday, but he also sang the national anthem in Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Phillies against the Washington Nationals on Friday. It was alumni weekend in Philly. John Oates is originally from North Wales, Pennsylvania. So he went out there, was able to sing the national anthem, and the Phillies showed up and showed out for Oates and many others who were in the stands as they win 3 straight games. Trey Turner on Friday night walked it off with a walk-off single. A nice home run to end the game. Nationals came back. They tied it 2-2. Trey Turner said, not so fast. Let me go out there and win this game for the Phillies. They can win 4 games. They can win the series tonight. It's a 4-game series. They can win it tonight if they can defeat the Nationals at 6:05 p.m. Sanchez is expected to pitch for the Phillies. He's 8-8 this season, so he could use a win. He wants to stay above 500. Hopefully that will motivate him. He has a .363 batting average and has 103 strikeouts this year. Let's win tonight if you're the Philadelphia Phillies. You need the confidence. Beat the Nationals. The Nationals have struggled defensively. Defeat them. It has not been, while they're winning games, it has not been the best after this All-Star break. They've looked a little bit like a different team. Go out there today, take a deep breath, win the game. And what would be nice, don't put fans in a disarray. Go out there and win the game by a few. Get a few more runs than usual. Don't rely on Trey Turner to have some miracle home run to win. Not a miracle home run, but a home run to win. Keep it calm. A nice, good game where Philly fans don't have to panic and worry. Next up, we got the Guardians and the Yankees. They'll be playing on Tuesday. And if you know anything about this history, I bring this game up because the Guardians and the Yankees have had beef the last few years. They've both been in similar playoff positions. They've met each other multiple times in the playoffs. And one of the signature moves has been rocking the baby. And all of this came from Josh Naylor. That was after Josh Naylor was able to hit a few home runs off of Garrett Cole. And as a result, as he's rounding the bases, he decides to rock the baby and possibly say some words that I won't say on the radio, but in so many terms he said, Garrett Cole is my son. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's offensive to say, yes, that's my son, because it's a term of like, I can control him because I'm hitting home runs off of him. I'm doing things that are shocking and surprising against a guy like Garrett Cole. But the thing about trash talk is that it doesn't always last forever. I've always loved athletes who talk a lot of trash. I never minded that. But make sure you can go out there and prove it. Because it sounds really silly once you can't. Guys like Deion Sanders and Terrell Owens and even Allen Iverson. Even though Allen might not have the ring to prove it, and neither does Owens, but they would go out there and they would defend their opponent. Allen Iverson would step over Ty Lue. He was the answer. You're allowed to talk when you're really good. Josh Naylor, on the other hand, not to say that he's not really good, but after you call someone your son, you should probably win the series. That did not happen. After this whole debate had started about 2 years ago, Gleyber Torres later went on to rock the baby as he was able to help the Yankees win the series against the Guardians, along with fans who took it and looked right at Gleyber Torres and rocked the baby. There's a very iconic photo, I suggest you look it up, of a few young men who were at Yankee game, Yankee Stadium. Come on, Philly fans, Yankee fans, you know they're hardcore. They were sitting there rocking the baby in front of Josh Naylor, saying, yep, how the tables have turned. And the thing is why I mentioned this game and why I mentioned this series during a weekday, all that. It's not necessarily starts on a Tuesday, not like it's a Friday, Saturday, Sundays type of series. I mention this because it's in Yankee Stadium. And Yankee fans don't tend to forget when things go wrong. The only time they seem to forget is when it's one of their players. Even Giants fans, right? When it was time for Eli Manning to leave, they said, yep, get out of here, we're done with you. But when Derek Jeter made mistakes, they made him hear it, and then they forgave him. Not so similar with the Guardians. The Guardians and them have beef. So this could be an interesting series. While I do think that the players will keep it PG, it'll be interesting to see if Soto is still getting walked, Judge is getting walked. That's been an ongoing issue the Yankees have having, that Soto just kind of wants to hit. But that's the way baseball can be played, and many teams want to play it that way, so Soto doesn't hit 3 home runs in a game like he did last week. But it will be fun to see this Guardians-Yankee matchup and to see what type of energy New York Yankees fans decide to bring to Yankee Stadium. Let's talk a little bit about Aaron Judge now, even though we're still in this Coastal Countdown segment and this already happened. But to wrap this up, Aaron Judge did hit his 300th career home run on Wednesday. He's the fastest player to 300. He has played in just 955 games before hitting his 300th career home run. That is 132 games less than Ralph Kiner, who played for Pittsburgh, for Cleveland, and for Chicago. And he is just the 167th player to do 62nd player to do so. So just some insight on the amazing career, I would say, that Aaron Judge has been having. And that, again, he was just able to go out there. He's healthy. It makes a big difference. They're against the White Sox, the team that has struggled this year. And it's fun to see good baseball. Because for so many years, you think of somebody like Barry Bonds, whose career was just tarnished because of his suspensions. Even someone like A-Rod, a lot of people said, well, that Yankees World Series in 2009 isn't as important. Or there's an asterisk next to it, you may say. Just like with Barry Bonds, well, there's an asterisk next to it because they did things they weren't supposed to do. Because they were on things they weren't supposed to be on. And the way that the testing has gone lately in terms of New York and in terms of just how the MLB has changed, it seems a lot better, a lot more stable. You know that this is just how good Aaron Judge is. And whether you're a Yankees fan, I understand that Phillies fans probably don't like to hear it. They don't want to see the Yankees do well. I understand, but you have to notice history. And if you're a baseball fan, you understand what Aaron Judge is doing is quite impressive and quite amazing. So I gave you a little bit of history with the whole 300 games. So that brings us into our next segment of Throwback Thrills. So today is August 17th. I mentioned this earlier in the show, but this will be the last show for the summer. I'm very sad to leave, but again, thank you all so much for listening and for tuning in with me this summer. I love history, so this is why I love this Throwback Thrills segment. So let's get right into it. On August 17th of 1948, oh, you're not going to want to hear this, Phillies fans, but the Dodgers defeated the Phillies 1-0. Okay, who cares, right? While that was kind of just, all right, they lost, that stinks. But what I found interesting is that the Fightin' Phils committed 8 errors in that game, which is the second all-time for their team, or at least was at that point in 1948. But years later, we're transitioning to a different team. 1973, Willie Mays. Now, he's known for being on the San Francisco Giants, but this time he hit his 660th career home run and his last career home run as a New York Met. Even though the team still lost 2-1, Willie Mays went out there and hit his 660th home run. And this is a little bit more of some recent news, but in 2021, Joel Embiid, people were hoping he'd be the second answer for the Sixers team, has not done that just yet. But Joel Embiid signed a 4-year, $196 million deal with the 76ers. We talked about Anthony Edwards winning a gold medal. Joel Embiid also won a gold medal quite recently. And now we'll have the opportunity to try and see if he can help the Philadelphia 76ers win an NBA final. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about fantasy football, a little bit about J.J. McCarthy's injury, and then we will finish off the show with another segment, the last segment of Social Scoreboard for the summer. We'll be right back after these messages. Support for Cape May Radio, WCFA 101.5 FM, and the Center for Community Arts comes from Cape Island Woodworks, offering residential and commercial woodworking services while preserving Cape May's historic architecture. For more information is available at capeislandwoodworks.com. Support for Cape May Radio, WCFA 101.5 FM, and the Center for Community Arts comes from Cape May Convention Hall, a performing arts venue for up to 1,000 people, and seminars, weddings, and banquets for up to 600 people. For more information, contact the City of Cape May at 609-884-9536. Welcome back to the Beachside Blitz. I am your host, Patricia Caputo. Here we surf the wave of sports on Cape May Radio, WCFA 101.5 FM. We have about 20 minutes left of the show, so let's wrap this up. We're going to talk a little bit more about some NFL and some injuries that have recently happened in the NFL. First off being J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is out for the season. I know we're not in the Minnesota area, we're not Vikings fans, but J.J. McCarthy, the rookie that came in from Michigan after winning a national championship this past season, a lot of people saying, J.J. McCarthy, is he going to be good in the NFL? Is he a system quarterback? Well, now that he's out for the year after the Vikings decided to trade Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to make some adjustments. In fact, Matt Corral, out of Ole Miss, or was out of Ole Miss a few years ago, will be taking over. in place of J.J. McCarthy. But I bring this up because we mentioned we talk a little bit about fantasy football. And while this does affect the Minnesota Vikings, and it affects if you planned on taking J.J. McCarthy, of course, it also affects a guy that the Vikings just signed a lot of money to in Justin Jefferson. We've been a little LSU heavy, but Justin Jefferson is also a former Tiger, now on the Vikings, keeping it with the purple. Signed a ton of money. The Vikings were hoping to win. The Vikings thought, when they drafted JJ, that this was a team they can win with. Because Kirk Cousins was only getting older. They couldn't get it done with him. Was he able to play in the playoffs? JJ McCarthy, or Justin Jefferson rather, is that team. No wonder they signed him. It makes sense. But it is nerve-wracking that you don't have a wide receiver, or you have Matt Corral, but a dominant, starting, for sure wide receiver that this team was confident they would have for the rest of the season. Justin Jefferson probably has goals, I'm sure. Everybody wants to win a Super Bowl. You need a quarterback to do that. It's very unfortunate. A lot of people were not sold on J.J. McCarthy. But now you have to find out, the Vikings have to figure out if they can be sold on Matt Corral for the year, or if they're going to trade, or if they're going to make other decisions, or pick up a guy if he doesn't make a 53-man roster and see if he's possibly going to be able to start. Look, I'm not saying all hope's lost yet. All right, you look at the 49ers and how different that was when there was a point where their best quarterback was their third-string quarterback in Brock Purdy. But the Vikings might not get that lucky. So I bring this up to talk a little bit about fantasy football. And while I'm not a fantasy football expert, I must say I did win one fantasy football championship in my short 5 years of playing. So I don't know how much information I can give you, but if I can give you anything, I'll let you in on a little secret. And if anybody I'm playing fantasy football with is listening, try not to take my ideas, please. But my biggest thing coming in, when I first came in and started playing fantasy football, I was in a keeper league. I came in with absolutely nobody. I was just starting. Everybody else got 3 guys that they got to keep. So I had to make a move. And my move was, let's draft rookies. In fact, it was the year that Christian McCaffrey was a rookie. And I said, I am drafting Christian McCaffrey with my 6th overall pick. I had taken over somebody else's team. I wasn't necessarily allowed to keep their keepers, but I had the 6th overall pick. I drafted Christian McCaffrey. Everyone said, I'm crazy. They said he's going to be a bust. They said, you could have taken him later. I know. But now he is a number 1 pick. So maybe I could have planned better. But I now have Christian McCaffrey and I won a fantasy football championship with him. We've been on the Panthers together. We've been on the 49ers together. We've been on my team Lucky and Blitz together. My biggest suggestion for those who are just getting into fantasy football, or hey, those who need some help, I totally get it. I've gone seasons where I've won 2 games and it's been tragic. Look at the rookies. Look at Jaden Daniels, possibly Caleb Williams, Keon Coleman, even maybe Brock Bowers for the Raiders. Look at them. Because especially if you're in a keeper league, all of a sudden you get these little rookies. Justin Jefferson, also part of my team, drafted him when he was a rookie. Drafted Saquon Barkley. I traded a lot for Saquon Barkley, but was able to draft him as a rookie because I had the 2nd overall pick in my 2nd year. And I was able to trade up to get the 1st overall pick and get Saquon Barkley. And they all helped me win a fantasy football championship. It takes time, but especially if you're in a keeper league, get those rookies and look them up. Do some extensive research. I have a 20-hour drive back to LSU when I go. That is fantasy football planning time. I'm not driving, to preface. I'm not driving when I'm going down there. Somebody else drives. But that is my time to plan very strategically for fantasy football. I'm not saying you have to put away 20 hours to get a fantasy book, write down players, do some deep diving research on them, and find guys that are going to be best for your team. The only guy who will not be best for your team is Chris Evans. Chris Evans is out for the season with a torn propeller tendon. Drafted by the Bengals this offseason. Don't draft him. Also did that my first year. Was a little unfamiliar with how the computer worked. Ran out of time. They drafted somebody who was hurt for me. Wasn't great. But again, still, we're up, right? We have that championship that I can live on forever. To wrap things up about the NFL, Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. We talked a little bit about this last week and how Ayuk said, I'm not playing for the 49ers. No, thank you. And the Niners said, that's great. We're not trading you. So good luck. Well, it seems that they've possibly come to some common ground as Ayuk and the 49ers are reportedly closing in on a deal, according to Bleacher Report, or at least they're closer to a deal than what was expected. Brandon Ayuk kind of played the long game with this one, reasonably so. A lot of people were saying, well, look, he's going out there and posting highlights of Jaden Daniels, his former teammate for Arizona State. Does this obviously mean he wants to go play for the Commanders? Maybe. Probably not so much, but he still posted it. And then he said, yeah, I'm just done. I don't want to be on this team anymore. But they seem to have come to some common ground, like I mentioned. And according to Bleacher Report, Ayuk said that he wants some adjustment to his fourth-year extension, so that there's a possibility that there are some things in his contract that he wants tweaked and fixed so that he can get that extension within his fourth year and be a 49er for the long haul. To wrap things up, we have a little bit of a longer social scoreboard today because there's a little bit that we have to talk about before we really understand what college football fans mean by they're not going anywhere on Saturday, October 12th. I'm with them. I am with them. Except I will be going to the LSU game versus Ole Miss. There are so many amazing football games on Saturday, October 12th. The only thing that could possibly ruin that, well, might be a wedding. Yeah, according to The Knot, very famous, understands wedding, has selected even hotels like the Chalfont here as a top 10 wedding venue. They're very popular. A lot of people trust them and the Knot to make wedding decisions. If The Knot knows you, you're in. Well, according to The Knot, they're saying October 12th is one of the top 5 most popular days for a wedding in 2024. October weddings are beautiful in New Jersey. They're beautiful in most places. It's a little breezy. It's cool outside. Can't complain about an October wedding, especially October 12th, right in the middle. It's a nice, crisp fall day. And there's nothing more I love than a nice, crisp fall day when you can have the windows open and watch football for 7, 8, 9, or 10 hours, right? Well, it's a pretty popular day for college football on October 12th, along with weddings, according to The Knot. So Ole Miss will be at LSU in Death Valley on October 12th. All of these times are to be determined, so we will decide, is it afternoon or is it night? We'll figure it out. The Florida Gators are playing Tennessee. What could go wrong in that game? Who knows? But you're going to want to watch it, aren't you? Penn State versus USC. That sounds like a really weird matchup, but not anymore. Not with the way the Big Ten is now shifted. They're now rivals. This is not just oh, wow, okay, 2 big schools. Nope. Pac-12 doesn't exist. Well, in terms of USC and Oregon. Penn State versus USC, you're going to want to watch that at USC. Penn State is going to be traveling for a game on Thursday, and then they're going to have to come back home all jet lagged. This is going to be interesting. Why would you want to miss that one? But it doesn't end there, because then it just gets better with the Pac-12 going away in terms of these big schools, as Ohio State will play Oregon at Oregon. So again, Ohio State will be in a similar position of, okay, they'll likely leave on a Thursday, possibly a Friday after the guys get out of class, and then head all the way practically across the country to Oregon. And plan a game on a Saturday of October 12th, where it'll probably be a little colder in Oregon, maybe a little crisp, a little cool, leaves falling. Will there be a wedding across the street or right around the block from one of these games? I don't know. The likelihood is yes, because of the popularity, but how many people will just happen to have something that day? Well, this might be the day or people decide who their true friends are, or you just really grasp an understanding of how much people love college football, how much people love football. In fact, so much so that some people on social media, before we even get to the top 3 and rank them, were calling for a ban on all fall weddings. People were saying sports are better. Why would you get married on a Sunday or a Saturday? I don't know, maybe it was just me, but when I was a kid, I feel like people got married on a Wednesday, and that was always very strange to me. Because my teachers would say, oh, I have a wedding. I have to leave on a Wednesday. Or they were getting married on a Wednesday, so they were off Friday to Thursday so that they could have all the festivities that come with getting married. What happened? Wednesday weddings need to come back for the fall. It's a must. Wednesday weddings are perfect. There's no college football. There's no football, NFL football at night. Because in the fall, if you're a sports fan, the possibility is that you can watch baseball on your phone. If you like one team, you can do it. Right? If you're a Phillies fan, all right, you pull it up on your phone, fine. You'll deal with this wedding for a little bit and then hope that there's an after party with TVs. Football, it's more difficult. There's too much going on. So there's a lot to discuss here and a lot to unpack. But I feel that if you're a sports fan or you have people that you know are sports fans, not to say that you're planning your wedding around games, but you should consider. Because Tuesdays and Wednesdays might be perfect. Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday, they're all out. They're all out. There's all a possibility of a football game happening. But not on Monday and Tuesday. Now that's a lot to do in 48 hours, but if you're not a sports fan and you're listening, and you have a wedding and you're trying to plan, talk to your friends who are sports fans. Ask them their ideas. And my biggest suggestion would be to look at games that are coming up. Look at games that are happening. Look at games in 2026. You'd be surprised. Most of these matchups that I just mentioned are going to be ranked. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, is Oregon going to be ranked? Is USC going to be? We don't know. That's the fun of it. That's why you wait until October 12th. That's why it's so hyped up right now. That the odds are that most of these teams can be ranked, have the possibility of being ranked, especially with the way the playoffs are lined up now that so many others have the opportunity to get into the playoffs. Why would you want to miss this? So even though the reality is that you can't ban all fall weddings, some people have had absolutely enough. So let's get into it. Let's rank the top 3 on the social scoreboards after it was announced that October 12th is the most popular, or the top 5 most popular wedding days in 2024. At College Football Guy on X said, oof, glad I'm old enough to rarely get invited to weddings anymore. October 12th has been circled on my calendar since schedules were released. Again, as a reminder, it's Ole Miss versus LSU at home, the Gators versus Tennessee in Tennessee, Texas versus Oklahoma. Huge game. I might have even missed that one when I was talking about all these games. Texas versus Oklahoma, an iconic game every single year. They're in the SEC this year, which makes it even better. They'll be playing. That Red River rivalry. That's one you're going to want to look out for. Penn State versus USC, Ohio State versus Oregon. That College Football Guy was not going anywhere. If someone makes plans, they should save them for October 13th because he will not be there. Anyway, moving on to number 2. Actually, before we do that, I also wanted to mention that baseball will be in full swing in terms of the playoffs. So that will be something to take into account, as MLB will be playing in their division series, and there could be a possibility that there are 2 Game 5s that day if each team, or if the teams force a Game 5. So that's something else that you have to take on with all of these amazing games with possibly ranked matchups. But coming in at number 2, this guy, I think he's going to send this text just generally to all of his friends or anybody who has plans on October 12th. In quotations, it says, sorry, dude. I know we've been super close since grade school, but you have to understand, your big day, in terms of the wedding, conflicts with my need to establish self-worth through the achievements of 20-year-old men playing a game. I'm not saying this is a healthy way of doing life, but this is the reality of sports, where most of these fans have now grown older. It's been quite weird for me watching football players who I'm in class with the next day and seeing how much I'm relying on them to win a football game and then realizing we have the same exam on a Tuesday morning. But there's a lot of pressure on these athletes to win these games, especially if you're a guy like Paul Sepertini on X, who is very committed to ensuring that he will be sitting and watching every single game on October 12th and not attending any wedding whatsoever. But there are some positives to this. While some people are seeing the downside of the fact that you'd have to be out, it'd be an all-day event, others are seeing that, hey, a wedding's what? Maybe an hour if they keep it short. You miss an hour, you can put it on your phone, grab a portable, and then you hope that everything that happens before, there's a TV maybe in the hotel room. And then after the after party, possibly there's a TV if they choose the right venue. All of these are very, very strong possibilities. But just in case that's not a possibility for you, J.L. Erie on Twitter seemed to have worked it out because he has faced this dilemma. He has a wedding on October 12th. And I give him credit because it's not his family member, but he does say it's one of his best friends, so he feels obligated to go. But he's made it very clear that he has other obligations at this wedding. And they're just going to have to suck it up. So he said, best man at my best buddy's wedding that day. He had no clue. There's been this running joke I've been seeing on social media about the women who are tending to plan the wedding and that their spouses don't tend to know a lot about what's going on. This might have been the situation for this guy. Yeah, October 12th sounds great. Made no mention of it and never looked at any college football schedule. Anyway, best man at my buddy's wedding that day. He had no clue. These teams didn't even merge conferences when he picked a date. But we will prevail. I love the positivity. He went on to say, groomsmen will be on streaming duty. We will get it done. Friendship over football always. But each table will stream a different game. Let's go. I love this. Because this is reality. You can be friends with somebody, but when this guy who is getting married is probably just as heartbroken, there are some people who have been saying, yeah, I might have to switch my wedding date. Maybe I won't attend my wedding. Likely jokes. But if this guy didn't even know before the conferences merged, that's got to be heartbreaking. That's got to be heartbreaking. That you might lose the possibility, depending on when the wedding is. If it's a 4 p.m. game, that might be tough. You might have to move this wedding to 11 a.m. even. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. be done by 11. That would be the best case scenario. And then again, have your streaming services up and ready to go once you get to that after party. Lunch. Do a nice little lunch. Who needs dinner at a wedding? It's fine, right? I like it. I think that this way of thinking is very positive. They have it worked out. That Jay Leary can go out there, can get the streaming duties. Maybe the bride won't be the happiest, but maybe she's in the same boat. Possibly they both made a really big mistake and really love football, and all of the groomsmen are going to have to come through and help them with their goals of not only getting married, something that's very costly, that they've probably been planning years for, but ensuring that they never miss a beat when it comes to watching each and every college football game. That wraps it up for Social Scoreboards, but in all seriousness, this will be a very fun and exciting season, not only for the NFL, we talked about it with the NFC East, and everything that could happen there, and how the Eagles could possibly take over and run the league, but also everything that could happen with college football. It'll be interesting to see that there will no longer be a 14 playoff, and this is why I think any other day, this whole wedding scenario, while college football is very important, would not be as hyped up as it is. But when you have teams that have not faced each other a whole lot, and then all of a sudden they're rivals now, and they will be rivals for many, many years, and this is the first time they're playing against each other, you're itching to see this. You're itching to see, can Penn State really get over the hump that they've been trying to get over for years? When they can't beat a team like Ohio State, can they beat teams like USC and Oregon and UCLA if needed? You're going to have to wait and see. And again, you're likely going to have to wait and see on October 12th. So make a plan. That's all I have for you today on the Beachside Blitz and for the summer on the Beachside Blitz, where we have surfed the wave of sports since June. I'm your host, Patricia Caputo. Once again, thank you so much for spending some time with me this summer. Thank you for listening and joining in every weekday, Saturday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. I've really appreciated hanging out and talking sports with all of you. Until next time, my name is Patricia Caputo, and you are listening to the Beachside Blitz on WCFA 101.5 FM, Cape May Radio, the Center for Community Arts.